Today, on with the first pick. It's an emergency pod. Ran Carthon, our former Titans GM. I'm Ryan Wilson, and we are here. You're making the bug eyes because Russ Wilson is basically Ryan Wilson at this point. He's going to be a spectator. Jaxson Dart's been named the starting quarterback heading into week 4 for the New York Giants. The Giants are 0-3. They've hit a rough patch. It's been a rough patch the entire season. Not entirely on on Russ Wilson. So, Rand, let's start here. Are you at all surprised with the Los Angeles Chargers coming to town, sitting at 0-3, that Brian Daboll, the head coach whose hot seat is not cold, would go make this move bringing the rookie first-round pick in to start?
Surprise, no. I mean, just because, and I'm basing it solely off of the language that Coach Daboll used in his presser, I think it was yesterday, where he was, hey, everything's being evaluated. And typically when you start to hear that everything is being evaluated, that means a change is coming, whether it's an immediate change or we're going to give it one more week, a change is coming. So when you start to hear that type of language, you knew. And then when the reporter pressed him again, and he was like, oh, well, we're still watching the film, which at that time, I believe it was 3:00. You're not still watching the film at 3:00. The film is watched, and so you're starting to get ready to game plan, which kind of signified that, like, hey, something could be coming.
And worth noting, and you would know this better than me, so correct me or give me the insights. Brian Daboll can say whatever he wants to say to the media. He can just say, no, Russ is our starter, and then make the decision on Saturday or whenever publicly. The other thing is, after the week 1 loss to Washington, what did Brian Daboll say? Russ Wilson is our starter in week 2. So he didn't tiptoe around it. And obviously you're having conversations with Joe Schoen, the GM, probably ownership, I would imagine. So this wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. If you're looking behind the scenes and had to speculate, how long has this been in the planning? Would this be something you even talk about in training camp? Like, look, if we get off to a slow start, the schedule stinks, we may start to do this because we saw what Jaxson can do in training camp / preseason?
Yeah, and it could be the moment you draft him. Like, hey, what's the plan for him? Or leading up to the draft, hey, if we do make this move and we take Jaxson Dart wherever, what's the plan for him? How long do we plan to sit him? And then you continuously have those conversations from, OTAs, like you said, through training camp. And then as the season started, I think everything slows down if the Giants win that Dallas game, right? Especially with the way that Russ played. And I think at that point, with the way Russ played, you couldn't justify sitting him down, right? And so that just prolonged it. And then the Chiefs game, to lose in the fashion they did, especially when the game was close. And I think those 2 costly picks, one in scoring position before the half, which, yeah, Russ threw the pick, but I question the play calling on that drive, because in my opinion, that should have been a bleed situation where you end that half or that drive in particular with as minimal time on the clock as possible, to where Kansas City doesn't have time to get a drive going. Because I think it was 2nd and 7, and you call a pass on 2nd and 7 when the game is tied 6-6 and there's 50-something seconds left, in the half. Like, right there, you count your losses, you run the ball, and you let the clock run down. Because I think Kansas City had a timeout left. And so you run the ball just like I said, it's a bleed situation. You want to bleed the clock, kick the field goal, get the 3 points, get out of the half, but you throw a pick down there. And then I think Kansas City went down and got a field goal right before the half with 50-some seconds left. So that was both. I mean, obviously, in my opinion, you don't call the pass there. But then if you're Russ, to me, it's ozone. And ozone is either, it's not even really an ozone situation, because it's either end zone or out of bounds. And so you want to just get the ball out of bounds. You want to live to see another day. But, playing the Chargers, man, the one thing about it is, the defensive coordinator, Mentor, he does a really good job. They got a really good team and the way they play. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to move their pieces around to try to create some confusion. I'm sure the Giants' game plan is going to be some design quarterback runs, some RPO looks to use Jaxson Dart's mobility in his legs to kind of, help him get out of situations. But here's the one thing, it's a home game. He's not getting his first game starting on the road. And I thought about it too. If you're Daboll, if you're the Giants organization, starting Russ at home and he doesn't play well, then now you got to hear the boos
again.
And we can all say that, oh, that doesn't matter. Oh, it matters, because the people that are in the suites, the decision makers, they're hearing these boos, right? And then those are going to lead to conversations after the game. Yeah, and so you don't, as a head coach, as a GM, you never want to have those conversations. So I thought about that part too. And then the final thing for me, from a thought perspective, they committed to Russ early, like you said. But throughout the whole process, whether we felt week 5 was the best, week 11, week 14, whenever you thought the best it was, Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, the Mara family, the Tisch family, they all reserve the right to change their mind, like Coach Parcells would say. And so you could change your mind at any given point. And clearly they have. And so they're ready. They were ready to make the move, and here we are.
Yeah, and you see this graphic here that producer Stryker has on the screen. If you're listening, week 2 at Dallas, Russ threw for 450. They should have won that game. Interception in overtime cost them down the stretch, and obviously Brandon Aubrey's the best player on planet Earth. Week 3, only 56% completion percentage. Those 2 interceptions that you talked about ran. And here's the thing about reserving the right to change your mind if you're ownership, GM, or coach. You're playing the Chargers at home. The at-home part's good. Jesse Minter is going to be a hot head coaching candidate as we get through the next hiring cycle, because he's been that good as defensive coordinator for the Chargers. After that, you're at New Orleans, and that's a team in disarray. So a little perhaps chance for Jaxson to get his feet underneath him. And then it's at home against the Eagles, on the road in Denver, and then on the road in Philly, and then at home against San Francisco. I mention all this because you're not going back. Like, unless, God forbid, Jaxson gets banged up and can't play, you're riding out the rest of the season, correct?
Oh, you have to.
Right.
You have to at this point, because you made your bed. This is the decision you made, and you got to live with the ebbs and flows of a young quarterback at that point. So you got to live with it. And you're looking at this schedule, like they're facing a gauntlet, because we talk about, you got the Eagles twice in a matter of 3 weeks. You got to play against Vance Joseph's defense. You got to play against Robert Saleh's defense, a Dennis Allen defense, a Jeff Hafley defense, a Kelvin Shepard defense, a Mike Vrabel run defense. Then you get a bye, and then you got to go against a Dan Quinn defense, a Brian Flores defense.
Lord have mercy.
And then you got to go against a Patrick Graham defense, right? And Patrick Graham, his game plan will mimic what you see from a Brian Flores, because their systems are basically identical. And then you end the season with an Eberflus defense and the Cowboys, which we have seen has had some leaks in coverage. So
literally, you might have to wait till week 18 to see. And maybe the Patriots, their defense hasn't been quite up to snuff this season. I'm sure Mike Vrabel would agree with that. So you have 2 defenses that maybe you can take a breath and catch your breath after week 5 Saints game. And that's week 13 Patriots in the last game of this season against the Cowboys. So I think, how do you sell to a fan base, or do you just not even try, that you have to manage your expectations, because there's a chance this is going to be a rough go of it?
Well, hey, listen, let's just be real here for a second, right? The fans get to hold the team, the players, the coaches, the front office. They get to hold everybody accountable.
That's right.
Right? So now it flips. The organization gets to hold the fan base accountable. The fan base they were chanting, "We want Jaxson Dart," or whatever their chant was, they wanted Jaxson Dart. Well, now you get what you want and what you're asking for. So now you got to live with it just like we do. So we don't have to explain to the fan base or to try to get them to, tailor their expectations. You just have to, we're all in this together, right? Because the fans want what's best for the organization. And obviously the organization wants what's best, for its own benefit. And so we're all in this together. And so we just got to ride it out and stick together.
So producer Stryker's flashing the YouTube poll that he just put up. How many wins will the Giants end the season with thus far? 5 or fewer wins is at 82%, if my math is correct. I think that sounds about right. They're 0-3. We just saw the schedule, and I'm not even going to call the Saints game a layup. The Giants haven't won a football game. And I think it's not even close. The quarterback play in New Orleans with Spencer Rattler, who could get benched any minute, has been much better than what we've seen in New York. The other thing I'll mention, a couple things. I think your point about now the owners and the team can hold fans accountable because they're getting what they asked for. That leads me back to the 2019 season when in week 2, things had gone so bad, they benched Eli Manning ahead of the week 3 game. Bought in first-round pick Daniel Jones, who went off in week 3 against the Buccaneers. And fast forward to 2025, and I won't quit talking about him now because he's so good for the Colts. The point is, I wish Jaxson Dart all the luck in the world. It feels like it's going to be a lot more bumps and bruises than smooth sailing on open highway. So that's a concern for me. The other thing is, I don't know where you turn other than throwing jump balls to Malik Neighbors because Tyrone Tracy's now banged up. He's going to be out for a little bit. You can lean on Cam Scatterbo, but can you give him the ball 30 times a game? I don't think he makes it to Halloween because he's such a bruiser. So what's the plan?
I pose that same question is how long can Cam Scatterbo hold up? Because like we saw, Tyrone Tracy left that game with what I think was a dislocated shoulder.
That's what it was, yep.
Just based off of my experience with the injury. And so, again, even with that injury, and I hadn't seen anything, but with that injury, it's a matter, okay, you dislocate your shoulder. Is it a labrum tear? Because if there's a labrum tear in there, then we're talking about him being a running back. If he gets 10 carries and takes 10 hits, his shoulder's probably going to come out 7 or 8 times, which means you're going to have to get that fixed. You're going to have to get Bankart repair. And then now he's done for the year, which now makes Cam Scatterbo your lone runner.
So, Rain, by the way, quickly, it looks like Tracy's expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks.
So that typically means it's not a labrum tear, hopefully, or maybe it's something that he feels he could play through. We will see.
Yeah. Either way, it ain't good news for Jaxson Dart.
Yeah. And so, I mean, here's the thing. Like, now you're going to have to, again, lean on the run game. And I keep saying this, and I'm pretty sure people are tired of hearing me talk about leaning on the run game. But that's the best friend of a young quarterback is the run game and a safety valve underneath. Whether that's Darius Slayton or Wan'Dale Robinson.
Wan'Dale.
You know, and so, you know, and like you said, Malik Neighbors is a legit number 1 wide receiver in the league. And so they got to find creative ways to get him the ball, get him involved. And it doesn't necessarily always mean having to throw the ball downfield. Like, let's get him the ball on some quick screens and some design stuff where you're scheming him open, right? Because that's what teams are going to do now, especially with this Jesse Minter group. I'm pretty sure they're going to roll coverage over there, take him out of the game and say, hey, beat us with somebody else.
If you're a general manager, I don't know if you ever had the occasion to do this, but certainly the coaching staff, if you do hit a rough patch as a young quarterback, how do you keep that player from losing their confidence? Because we've seen that happen, and that is tough to come back from, at least during the course of the season.
Well, it's one of those things. It's how mentally tough is the quarterback, and I'm sure he's dealt with some adversity, you know, throughout his career or things that he can lean on. But you got to keep uplifting him, speak positivity, you know, into his life, and let him know. Say, hey, man, look, like, you're not expected to come here and be the savior. We know that that's what the New York media is going to build it up to be, that he's coming in to save the franchise and move forward. But all he has to do is be 1 of 11 and do your job and do what you're asked to do within his offense. And once his confidence builds, then, yeah, you can, you know, take other shots. But if I'm Jaxson Dart, and I just thought of this, if I'm Jaxson Dart, I find somebody in the organization and I reach out to Daniel Jones. And I say, hey, man, you know, this is Jaxson. I'm pretty sure you saw him get my first start. Like, what advice could you give me to deal with not only the pressures of getting a start as a rookie in the National Football League, but dealing with this New York media while trying to prepare and be the best I can be? I would reach out to Eli Manning. I would use all my resources just to help myself, because now Jaxson Dart's going to do everything in his power to lead this team to victory, and I hope he's successful.
That's a great call.
But he's got to lean into these resources because he's never experienced anything quite like what he's about to come into.
Yeah, and you talked about it. You know, I'm sure there was some adversity when he left USC, came to Ole Miss, and then had really good experiences with Lane Kiffin in that offense. Producer Striker says we have a message about Jameis Winston, the number 2 or number 3 quarterback. Sometimes when these starters get benched, they move them to number 3. We'll see what happens. So the question is, what's New York doing with Jameis Winston, asking for a friend in Cincinnati? And the implication, I would imagine, is that after watching Jake Browning help the Bengals suffer their worst loss in franchise history, not entirely on him, but they got a 48 burger hung on them, if I recall correctly. If you're looking for excitement, which sometimes involves turnovers, Jameis could be the man for you. And he's not wasting away on the bench, but it's been clear since early on that he was going to be the number 3 in New York. I don't know if that changes. Any conversations from either side, whether you're New York or Cincinnati, picking up the phone and saying, hey, do you want this guy? Or the Bengals saying, because Bengals have said that they trust Jake Browning. I don't know if they still believe that, but are you done looking for quarterbacks if you're the Bengals?
Well, Woogie, appreciate the question. I know Ryan was trying to stay away from pronouncing the names.
Woogie, JW Marriott in the house.
If I'm Cincinnati, I reach out just to inquire, just to see, what the case is going to be, because that was the first thing I thought about. Like, where does this lead Russ? Does Russ now become QB2 or do you make him QB3?
Let me ask you, why would you demote the starter, usually a veteran, to QB3, just to avoid the potential headaches?
Yeah, because if you're the young quarterback, if you're a young quarterback and the guy that was just starting is one play away from being in there, it's a different pressure. And not saying that Jaxson Dart may not feel the same way about Jameis. You know what I'm saying? But we know how quick this thing can flip, because every team's most favorite player is the backup quarterback.
That's right.
Is the backup quarterback. And so who is this charismatic weirdo? Russ needs to be traded or released. That's, in my opinion, that's your emotions talking, because Russ is a veteran. And so his contract is fully guaranteed for the year. So you're thinking, from that standpoint, where the Giants are running a business as well. So you releasing him, you're guaranteeing his money for the rest of the year. And now he can go to Cincinnati for the minimum. Like that just.
And the other thing is, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, Russ understood the reality of the situation this year, probably understood it last year coming into Pittsburgh, and what he dealt with Sean Payton in Denver. Sean Payton didn't bring him in. George Payton did. I think he's, fair or not, probably had enough time to have to sort of toughen up to these sort of situations. I mean, I'm sure it stinks for him, but it ain't his first rodeo in terms of having to deal with this sort of stuff.
No, and Russ knows how to handle these things, and I'm sure whenever he speaks to the media, he's going to be gracious, and he's going to be Russ. He's going to take this like a man, and and deal with it. And I know he is, just because of the man he is. But that doesn't mean that he's not allowed to have his emotions about it, whether you understood the situation or not.
Right.
But it's one of those deals where, it's going to be hard for him. And then you got to think about it. You're Russell Wilson, and you're standing on the sideline, whether he's inactive, the third quarterback, or the backup quarterback, the camera's going to find him at least 5 times a game.
Yep.
And everyone's going to be monitoring. Jaxson Dart throws an 80-yard touchdown to Malik Neighbors on the first play of the game, and the camera's going to find Russ. Is he excited for him? Is he mad? Is he being a bad teammate? And so these are dumb things you got to think about when you're on the sideline. Yeah. And you
Absolutely.
could literally be making a face for something else. Somebody could just stub your toe right before something good happens on the field, and they catch you with your face like,
yeah.
And now you're salty. And so that's the name of the game, man.
Hey, that's right.
But, like I said, I got a ton of love for this Giants organization. And I really hope what's best for him. I hope Jaxson Dart can answer the bell and give them what they're looking for. I know he's talented enough. He's plenty talented enough. And again, like Coach Daboll, I think, has a plan, right? And when I say has a plan, I'm talking about how to use him and how they're going to use him. And I think his ability to run, his athleticism is really going to come into play. for them in a way that Coach Dayball hadn't been able to call since he's been the head coach at the Giants.
No, that's right. And, we undersell Daniel Jones' athleticism, but I think Jackson's probably a little better athlete, number one. Number two, offensive line stinks. They did get Andrew Thomas back finally last week, and he's probably still not 100%, but they had some real issues along the offensive line. So if the offensive line get a little better, and maybe that's helped by an athletic quarterback, that's also good news. Two more things before we get out of here. Are you okay with them making the move heading into week 4, replacing Russ with Jaxson Dart?
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I thought it would be a little later, and I've been saying at earliest week 5, right?
And that was the Saints.
But at the same time, they know what they're playing for. They know what they're coaching for in a way that we can only speculate. And for them, they made the call when it was the time for them. And so I'm not here to object it, but I just it's one of those deals, man, where it's like now you've made the decision, and like you said earlier, now we got to ride it out.
Yeah.
And whatever comes after that, because hell, they could go on and win all the rest of their games, and everything is great in the tri-state area. But if things continue to go the way they have, then you just got to continue to ride this out. This is a part of the growth and the development and their development plan for Jaxson Dart.
Yeah, I'm fine with them making the move now as well. I mean, what do you have to lose? Our buddy Pete Prisco says, play the young guys, see what you got. I understand that, but I think you also have to use a little caution because, as we've talked about here, there's no turning back now. It's a one-way street, and you don't have reverse.
Yeah, and like I said, man, we keep putting this graphic up like this is a gauntlet. This is a gauntlet, man. And, I truly feel like, I know you mentioned week 13 against the Patriots. Like, by that time, hopefully they should have Christian Gonzalez back. So now you're going to have Christian Gonzalez, who will likely possibly shadow Malik Neighbors, and then you still have Carlton Davis, and still talking about Vraves and his ability to scheme and put a game plan together, especially for a rookie quarterback. Like this is a nice little gauntlet. So we're gonna really get to see, Jaxson Dart and his abilities against some really good quality defenses.
And one last thing before we go, let's say they win 4 games, which I don't know what the over/under is. That feels about right. Let's say Jaxson Dart is average. Let's say you have a top 5 pick. Let's say there's a quarterback you love in the next draft. And we talk about these quarterbacks every single week on this podcast in college. How long is that conversation?
Honestly, and this, I'm not in the business of, and I think you know me to know this, I'm not in the business of talking about people's job securities. But to me, it all depends on who's making the call.
Gotcha.
If Coach Dayball and Joe Shane are still there, then to me, if I'm owner, then we're not having this conversation about, hey, there's another quarterback that we love in the top 5. Like, we traded away picks to move back into, one last year to get this guy that we loved. We're not going to keep, loving everybody. So now it will be about surrounding, this young quarterback with weapons, whoever it is, or protecting the quarterback if there's an offensive lineman that you love enough to take in the top 5. So
yeah,
to me, those are, I didn't answer your question, but to me, those are the questions that I would counter with, just based off of, that. Now, if it's a completely different regime, then now it's a different level conversation with ownership, because Jaxson Dart is not their guy. However, even with that said, it's like you're almost like you're cycling through player acquisition phases, right? Because the constant turnover, and I think this is what the old Cleveland Browns was going through. You draft all these players, and then every 2 years there's a regime change, which now the players that you took 2 years prior no longer fit the current. So then you draft the current, and then 2 years later you make another move. So now you've gone through 4 cycles of player acquisition that no longer fit, right? So it's really hard to build consistency in terms of building your roster when you've had so much turnover.
It's a vicious cycle of losing. So that's a good point as well. And again, I mean, they took Abdul Carter at 3, which was the right call, and then traded back up for Jaxson Dart because, I mean, clearly they didn't want Shador. So that's also a noteworthy point, whether it's Caden Proctor or Caleb Lomu or whomever. They may want an offensive tackle. That's a conversation for another time. Striker points out, by the way, the over-under win total for the Giants is at 4.5 right now. I don't know where those 4.5 wins are coming from, but best of luck to Jaxson Dart. That is it from us here on this little emergency podcast edition of With the First Pick. Russ Wilson headed to the bench. Jaxson Dart headed to the starting lineup. Check out With the First Pick wherever you get your podcast. Scan that QR code. We will see you guys on Thursday for Young Fellow Wednesdays. See you then.